Hi, Creep here. You're watching GK. Quick question. Do you believe in miracles? Or, at the very least, do you believe in random occurrences that happen to cause crazy coincidences? The truth is, our life is full of coincidences, some with more merit than others. But computers are a very interesting kind of coincidence because when it does something that it isn't supposed to do, it's usually the result of an error coming from the maker's end. Or perhaps the person using it did something wrong. But what if it wasn't because of either of those much more obvious reasons? Hear me out here. There is a small chance that every once in a blue moon, the universe itself be dunking on computers. Now allow me to explain. First, we need to understand how computers work overall. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to give you some overcomplicated and crazy yap session about this. Just know that at the end of the day, everything, and I mean everything on a computer is nothing but numbers. Technically ones and zeros, but literally just mathematics. All computers, excluding quantum computers, work with two number values, specifically with a universal language of their own called binary. That binary is essentially just a bunch of math that when put in a certain order allows it to make a certain calculation. It's the reason why some of the earliest computers were used for calculations and as calculators, because they were quite literally built to do mathematical calculations. Now, you take those very same binary numbers and then multiply them by the billions and have them in random sequences and orders, and suddenly you have the binaries that not only make up basic software, but games, operating systems, networks, and so on. However, there is one very important thing to know about binary. Just one number flip changes everything. Just like how a light switch goes from on to off, the same thing happens to binary code, except when that flip occurs, it can create very notable changes. Here's a quick demonstration. Right here, I have a bunch of binary code that translates to the simple phrase of hello world. If I change it to 0 to a 1, notice how the result of the text changes as well. Now, if I were to do the same thing to another bit, just like that, I had completely changed the phrase of hello world to something else. But here's where things start going wild. Since these binaries are essentially the foundation of, literally everything computer related, all it takes is one bit flip for it to change everything. This isn't just theoretical too. As a matter of fact, there are many stories regarding these bit flip glitches ranging from all different places and sectors of computing. One of the most popular examples of this has to do with the streamer speedrunning a game some of you might be familiar with.
It's me, Mario!
During a live stream where streamer Dota Teabag in competition for a 70-star speedrun with mid-boss, Dota Teabag was going through the tick-tock clock level in the game when, most randomly, this happened.
Oh, dude. What the?
Did you get invisible walls?
What?
Please say you got invisible.
No, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen, though.
What happened?
I was going for, like, red coins or something? Dude!
Suddenly teleporting to a higher point in the level isn't just something that just happens. Many people could argue that this could be the result of him using an old game cartridge or console, but even when recreating the movements frame by frame, it's virtually impossible for this glitch to happen forcefully. This is what's known as the single event upset. This is the glitch that can go as far as completely changing an entire software's behavior for a split second. But how does this glitch even really happen? I mean, yeah, we know it's because binaries end up getting switched or something, but how? This is where the universe being the hater that it is comes in, because of something called cosmic radiation. Basically, the sun itself emits really high amounts of radiation, and that radiation, one way or another, reaches Earth. Thankfully, our atmosphere is designed in a way that prevents that radiation from turning our Earth into the Fallout universe, but that's not the point. The point is that radiation still finds its way onto Earth, just to a much smaller extent. Sometimes, this radiation can target specific particles that make up components like the CPU of a computer, and as a result, create this single event upset. Computers and the outdoors in this case go together like two lovers who occasionally get in an argument. Sure, it works, but every once in a blue moon there's going to be something that's going to break. These glitches can be so damaging, however, that it can even lead to actual injuries. In 2008, a Qantas Airways flight going over Western Australia began to randomly fall hundreds of feet over the span of 10 minutes. Of course, such a gradual decline in such a random time causing numerous injuries, predominantly bruises and injuries caused by the blunt force. Investigations from the Australian Transport Safety Bureau were unable to determine whether or not, however, that this was in fact the result of a single upset. But that only leads to the scary part about this bug. It can leave no trace, at least depending on how the system monitors bugs, just like organized crime. In all seriousness, the fact that it doesn't leave any trace can mean a lot of things. Although we know it exists and it's basically an Achilles heel for technology, we also can't really prove that it happens when it actually happens. So anyone can just say that when a computer suddenly mistakes 4 for 4 million, that it was just bad code, which only makes this single upset bug all the more interesting. The universe is, in other words, basically just beefing with technology and leaving no trace that it actually had any beef to begin with. These single event upsets are a kind of demonstration of that fact that technology isn't really all that perfect. All it takes is a little ionization of the chip for there to suddenly be a huge change causing the computer to freak out and do something irrational. So the next time you have a moment where you're in the middle of clutching a game and some bug causes you to lose, you can say that the sun literally just said, "Nah, fool, watch this."
Well, right now, you can get a complete Dell system with an Intel Pentium 3 processor, plus all of this for just $7.99.
Really?
She's intrigued. Excellent. Because right now, you can get free shipping. Unbelievable. And as far as service and support, Dell's won more awards than any other PC company in the last 5 years. It's real easy. Just call or go online. Tell them what you want, and right to your front door comes America's favorite PC.
Thanks, Steven.
Now you can get a Dell desktop with an Intel Pentium 3 processor and 6 months of America Online Internet service for just $7.99. Call or go online today, and shipping is free. There's great deals on notebooks, too.
Dude, you're getting a Dell.
Easy to buy, easy to own, easy as Dell.